welcome. My name is E.R. Anderson. I'm the executive director of Karis Circle. Karis Circle is a nonprofit programming arm of Karis Books, and Karis Books is the South's oldest independent feminist bookstore. We're very, very excited to be here with all of you tonight, both in person and online, to welcome Shodo Spring and two wonderful conversation partners, Charlie Vogt and Gareth Young. I'm going to introduce our conversation partners first and then tell you more about Shodo Spring. So, Charlie has been a spiritual seeker as long as she can remember through Lutheran catechism, pagan studies, feminist spirituality, and Buddhism. She is currently studying with Sensei Shoon Greenway in the Zen tradition, received the precepts with the Jukai ceremony, and is currently an active member of the Red Clay Sangha in Chamblee, Georgia. Charlie is also a longtime Karis friend, and so we're very honored to have her bring this event to us. Gareth Young is a co-founder and the guiding teacher of Red Clay Sangha. He has maintained a committed meditation practice since 1999 in the Zen, Chan, and Vipassana traditions. He received Dharma transmission in the Thai forest lineage of Ajahn Chah, Jack Cornfield, and Lisa Ernst. He lives in the Atlanta area with his wife and their two dogs, chickens, and bees, and he has two adult children. And Shodo Spring is the person of the hour. Shodo began with a childhood where refuge was in the woods, wildflowers, and sunny meadows. Through a winding path, including a degree in physics, marriage and children, growing political awareness, and Zen Buddhism, she found her work in addressing the consciousness that conquer the earth instead of living with it. In 2013, she led a walk along the KXL route, then adopted a bit of land in Minnesota to begin a center for spiritual community and action. She wrote Open Reality to reach out to invite people to a radically different awareness that may make survival possible. Shodo is an ordained and transmitted teacher of Zen Buddhism, a retired psychotherapist, and the founder of Mountains and Waters Alliance. Along the way, she abandoned despair and isolation and found confidence in the working together of all beings. And Shodo will share more about her various lineages. And we're going to get into a larger conversation among these three wonderful practitioners. But we're also going to invite y'all into the conversation about 45 minutes in. So as you're listening, please gather your questions. For our folks who are physically in the room, please just allow me to bring you the microphone so that everybody who's online can hear you. And for our online folks, you can drop your questions in the chat at any time, and I'll vocalize them when the time comes. But without further ado, please put your hands together for Shodo Spring.
Thank you. You can hear me, right? Oh, uh-oh. All right. So there will be help if I can't manage the microphone. So Charlie had a question that will plunge us right into the book. So we're going to go there first.
So first, I'm just going to say I love the title because it's open to all possibilities. And so the question I had was the very first sentence of the prologue says, "It is common to confuse the end of modern civilization with the end of human life." What did you mean by that?
I meant, as I have been watching 20, 25 years plus the environmental movement, I noticed that most of the major players do not talk about life on Earth. They talk about saving civilization. Mm-hmm. It's as if they can't imagine living without the internet, cell phones, airplanes, cars, lots of pavement. What else did I? Anyway, and so since I remember the 1950s, we didn't have cell phones, we didn't have the internet, and we did have television. There were 3 channels. And so I remember a world that actually is radically different from this one, and it worked better. You know, it didn't work better for everybody, you know. You can see I've got a white face, and my father had a good job. So, but the changes that are happening in our society because we think that things are necessities that are not necessities that people have lived without for millennia, and that suddenly in the last 20 years or 50 years have become necessities. It's just astounding to me. And watching people not see that we actually have choices is also very sad and painful. So that's what that sentence is about.
Right.
Um,
Choices. That's one of the
we,
things that you really emphasize in the book about this isn't the way it has to be all the time.
yeah, it doesn't have to be this way. So,
Cool.
And what you're talking about is profoundly countercultural. Um,
mm-hmm,
you have your first interlude where you talk about a new story.
mm-hmm,
You have to tell an alternative story. How do we tell an alternative story in this? The current story is so deeply ingrained, and even when we try and tell a different story, it's really hard to stay there and not fall back. How do we shift ourselves and those around us to a
right.
new story?
So that is the question, and it's about the last third of the book. How the heck do we do this? Um, and so, I mean, writing the book was my first major attempt to tell the new story. And I look around me and I see other people telling the new story. So, or telling a new story, and there are many versions of it. So, so what I did here was first I offer glimpses into the world I live in, which is not the same as the world that, say, my siblings live in. My world is more pleasant, I think, than theirs, even though I also see more pain and suffering than they do. Um, so that's one piece. It's like I just offer my image of the world. The other thing is rewriting human history. So we were taught, most of us were taught a version of human history that's like, well, first there were these really primitive people that didn't know much. And then we started to get some civilization, we got agriculture, and then things just got better and better. And what we have now is the best that humans could possibly do. Of course, the result of that thought is that if things go wrong, we just do more of the same. So, so one of the things I have in here is stories from the past. There's one story. So it's not unusual to understand that hunter gatherers lived differently than we do, and it looks kind of more free, although you wonder how often they were hungry and stuff like that. But that people lived in cities and did not abuse each other, did not have kings, um, and were not constantly warring. That's a strange thought. And I am particularly interested in one site that was very clearly described. I don't remember the name. It was in what's now Ukraine. It was large. It was city size, but they call it, archaeologists called it a mega site. And why? There was no castle. There was no sheriff, king, leader, fancy house. There was no parliament building. There were a lot of houses that were about the same size. They were all kind of like middle class suburban houses in their version. I don't think there were walls, but what there were huge gathering spaces, huge open spaces of the sort, where obviously a whole bunch of people would come and do something together. That's what they had instead of a hierarchy. And they lived that way for some time. Um, Crete is kind of famous for being that kind of place.
Mm-hmm.
And there are others. And in the back of the book, I have references to the places where I learned about them. There is so much learning happening right now. Not that there wasn't before, but so much is being learned that I can't possibly keep up with it. What I can do is read the people, the PhDs who are doing the research, and try to summarize and give a hint, give a direction of it. And so the feeling of this is that people in the past were, well, they had more wisdom than we do. And that's not a universal declaration, but it's like we have developed a kind of tunnel focus that says, well, I mean, this goes back really to the Renaissance. That says it said the church has to get out of the way. Humans are the best. Now we think of humanism as a good thing, but there was this movement that said, humans are the top of creation, and everything else has to bow down before us. And we're alone. And that theme has been going on for more than 500 years now. And in the last 100 years, it's kind of exploded.
Not working too well.
It's not working too well. But the people for whom it is working are the people with the power. Now, I ran across a piece of research that said societies that are more equal are happier. Even the rich people in them are happier. But this message does not seem to have gotten through to our ultra rich people who think that collecting more stuff is the way to be happier.
Right.
And
some of those cultures, giving away was a sign of wealth.
Yeah.
That was how you demonstrated your wealth. I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah. And there's an interesting thing, if you go back, I'm not sure how far, you find a place where they had rich and poor within a, village or a tribe or whatever the form was. And what the rich people did was threw feasts and parties and stuff.
Right.
And there's a reference, I'm not going to make this a global thing, but when Protestantism came along, it was kind of down on parties. The Catholics were okay with parties.
Yeah.
In their places.
Right.
But the Protestants were like, no Christmas,
no fun.
no fun. And so this thing of putting your wealth into parties didn't work anymore. And so people started saving money. I mean, there's some ideological stuff that went along with that too. So I certainly would not blame things on the Christian church, but there have been some warpings of the Christian church that I would blame things on.
One, you just talked about parties.
Yes.
Something else you talk about in here later in the book is playing.
Yes.
Dancing
in the streets. Yes.
And it's moving into this joyful life wherever we are, whatever's going on. That's a place you are in your life now.
Yeah.
It's taken you a while to get there. So how do we move our lives to that place where we just we live that vibrant, joyful life, Shodo?
Yes.
And Zen is joy, right?
Zen is joyful, but people don't always notice it.
It can be.
It should be. Actually, maybe I should read that little piece there.
Yeah, I would love these.
So Tejo, who I just visited, so she was one of the priests when I was new at Zen Center. And one day she gave a talk, and she would very deeply study the language and things. I'm finding this.
Try page 81. Something.
Oh, thank you.
Somewhere.
Oh, yeah, that's actually where I am. So it's in this paragraph. Oh, there it is. Okay. So she had been looking at a text to refer to the monks disporting themselves in Zazen, old-fashioned word. So she looked up disport, and it means play. So she thought there was a translation error. Because, Zazen, you sit down on a cushion, you probably face the wall, and you don't move. This really sounds like play. For a long time, yeah. So she looked up the Japanese characters, and she found two characters, both of which meant play. So, and then I just thought, okay, what does this word disport mean? Enjoy oneself unrestrainedly, frolic, divert or amuse oneself, to play in a carefree manner, or to amuse yourself in a lighthearted fashion. So the French word disporter means to carry away or to entertain. So being carried away and you're sitting there looking at a wall and you're not moving, you don't want to disturb the other people. Now, I can tell you how this is play, and some other people here probably can too, but it's not, people used to look at this thing I was doing going, what? Why do you do that? Oops. And what about when your knees hurt and so forth? So, so this is a way of playing. There are many ways of playing, but oh, okay. So there's data on children and play and how important it is to them.
Mhm.
And their brains and lives are affected when they live the civilized life with pavement, electronics, and control. And there's a book called Playing by Heart by Fred Donaldson. Play is what you do with no goal. Play is a natural expression of the life force. So when I was a kid, I played. Um, there was a television, but the limits were strict, and there wasn't much else. Go to school, come back home from school, help around the house, go outdoors and play. That's it.
Yeah, we,
Sometimes play with the other kids, and sometimes they'll run around in the woods, pick berries, climb trees, that stuff.
I remember begging my mother to take our shoes off. The end of May was when we got to take our shoes off and go
Oh,
barefoot for the whole rest of the summer, except
wow.
if we showed up at church, which we did every time it was open.
Right.
But the shoes off was the
Oh, yeah.
indication of like, oh, good, then we can play all
Oh,
summer.
yes, we were always barefoot.
Oh, yeah.
Outdoors.
Always.
And you had to look down because there were bees. And on the
Cow
gravel
pies.
driveway, it hurt. We didn't have cowboys, but the bees mattered. And stepping on rotten apples also. Yeah.
But by the end of the summer, you could go across the gravel.
Yeah. So, yeah, so there's this playful quality. I'm lucky. I was 5 when we first got a television, so I had 5 years that there were no distractions. And I made an effort to raise my children with not much television. But I didn't have total control. Anyway, so that's play. And then there's this other one, paragraph I call Dancing in the Streets. Now, where'd it go? Come on, fun.
That one I can't help you with. I don't.
Yeah. Oh, this one is just as good. So there's a story back from the Greek times or thereabouts. And there was a ship captain, and they were going somewhere in the Mediterranean. And he was given instructions by a voice, presumably from the heavens, from a deity or something. And it said, when you go by this island, shout to them, the great god Pan is dead. So he followed the instructions, and from that island there came up weeping and mourning and wailing. It's like Pan. So Pan, I mean, Pan is the god of wildness, of the forest, as in pagan. And it's like Dionysus is a similar Greek god. They're all about wild, insane play. And I don't think I quoted a lot of the stuff that I read here, but it's people got very wild. And having that taken away, or thinking of having that taken away, caused these people to go, oh my gosh, life isn't worth anything. So modern life looks askance at religions that include ecstatic practices, such as speaking in tongues, even when those religions carry names as accepted as Christian. The early years of ecstatic sects such as Quakers, Shakers, Pentecostalists, and Sufis were all marked by religious persecutions. 20th century America saw the return of wild dancing, that was my generation, originally criticized as too sexual. Some people remember Elvis Pelvis by the authorities of the time, and then just accepted. It was the boomer generation that, instead of switching to classical music as adults, continued to dance wildly whenever an occasion could be found. And Joseph Campbell, at a Grateful Dead concert, said, "This is more than music. It turns something on in here. And what it turns on is life energy. This is Dionysius talking through these kids. It doesn't matter what the name of the god is or whether it's a rock group or a clergy. It's somehow hitting that chord of realization of the unity of God in you all."
Yeah.
So that's the thing that is being stomped out. It's like it's allowed in drunkenness and in drugs of various kinds, but it's kind of, sort of allowed. It's allowed in sex in certain contexts. And most of the rest of life, we're supposed to behave ourselves.
So, not behaving is the way to solve our problems.
So there's ways of not behaving, and I'm going to have to go to the. So I was growing up. I was a good kid.
Yeah, me too. Too good.
I was horrible.
See, I noticed sometime in my 20s, I noticed that the bad kids had more fun and they came out just fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was interesting to me. And then, of course, when I got divorced, that was like the biggest crime. So there's a kind of not behaving, but there's a not being rigid. And so if you look in Buddhism, the way that works is not following rules and not even thinking about what other people are thinking. So not functioning according to shame or public opinion, but it's about recognizing, acting out of our connection with everybody else.
There's I used the word earlier, countercultural, and I can't remember. It's in context of something
right.
earlier in your book.
Yeah.
And this misbehaving isn't. It sounds like a bad thing, but it's not. It's simply not feeling bound by the culture, not feeling stuck. And a lot of the Graeber and Wenslow, whatever his name is, the other cultural work that you're talking about, a lot of that research is pulling up how those cultures were not locked in on rules. They were very free to move in different ways, to not be locked in. So this is it's a form of freedom, I think we're talking about.
We are talking about a form of freedom.
Well, John Lewis talks about that. He says, get in good trouble.
Oh, yes.
His instruction to us, in his dying days were to get in good trouble, make good trouble.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's sort of the idea, in present day.
And particularly in present day, I am so enjoying the protests. I mean, in Portland, this guy put on a frog costume.
Yeah.
And then everybody put on frog costumes and they danced and they teased and the ice guys were afraid of them. And somebody did yoga classes and somebody did, I can't even keep track. I just read, it's okay, Los Angeles did this, and Portland added something, Charlotte added something. Oops, Chicago is still in it. But every city is learning new things. And I was reminded recently of Saul Alinsky, who said the best organizer is the enemy. Now, he was doing street organizing and community organizing, and I was for a year a community organizer in that process. I didn't fully get it at that point, or I would have had a lot more fun and I would have been a better organizer.
Mhm.
But, I go out to a protest. I went to Standing Rock, and there were the ceremonies. And I did make it up for the morning prayers at the river every day that I was there. And it was cold. And that's another whole story. And I didn't write it in here, but I was changed by that. There were people doing work to take care of the camp. There were these ceremonies. There were all kinds of relationships. And then there were protests going on. And people were going out to the front lines and preparing to get arrested. And they wouldn't let you be a counselor unless you'd been there for, I don't know, 10 days or something. So all my ideas of how I would be useful didn't happen. But I went to the ceremonies, and I made an effort, you know.
Can I can I
Yeah.
take this in a different direction? There's so
Sure.
much around play and being countercultural,
Right, yeah.
but there's so much else in here.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm going to
Sure.
jump to this is your chapter on cost benefit analysis,
Oh,
at
yeah.
the tail end of which you say there is a fundamental problem here, the absence of actual ethical values.
Yeah.
Can you talk about land that for us, ground that in what you mean there, and also talk about um, what ethical values mean to us individually when we follow them, and how that feels, and the life affirming elements of that.
Okay. You might have to ask me that second one again.
Okay.
So I'll talk about the first one. So I have a friend who lives in New Mexico, and they have water rights. And water rights are like, they're ancient. And people have to, there are these channels, and you have to open them and close them so you get your share of water and leave some for the people downline. If you screw up and take more water, they do not care why you did it. They do not care how much you needed it. It's absolute. The water is shared equally. So that's an ethical value that works for a certain situation, which is everybody gets to have some water. And, in Minnesota, we wouldn't have this, but in a dry place, you need stuff like that. Now, cost benefit analysis says, well, it's okay to hurt these people if this thing benefits. During my life, I remember when they put the freeway through the city and they took out the Sowers house. And then it was years before they actually built the highway, and then we could get across town in half an hour instead of an hour, which was convenient for us. But the thing is, something called eminent domain was more important than any of the individuals. Now, I have been in places that were fighting against hospitals because the hospitals just kept getting bigger and bigger, and they were knocking down whole blocks of people's homes. And it's funny how the homes they knocked down were always poor people's homes. It's just so curious. And there have been times when they went after a rich person's farm, and there were more, or there's a farm in Indiana that I'm thinking of, owned by a senator, I think. And the rich people are more able to stop them. So, cost benefit analysis, for instance, it considers a life to have a certain value, but the value of that life, and so we're going, okay, if we have to make choices and something bad is going to happen, well, we'll judge it by the value. And the value of a person's life is determined by their income or by their future income. And so children get hurt, their income looks like nothing, so they're worthless. A person making minimum wage gets hurt. Well, okay, so so what they get is based on what they were earning. A wealthy person gets hurt, and what they get back is based on what they were earning. And so, cost benefit, the benefit to society versus the cost to individuals. So, right now, a lot of people are fighting about data centers, which there's one coming too close to my house, so I'm in this fight.
Us too.
Yeah,
In DeKalb County, there's
two. Okay, yeah. Um, oh yeah, and in Atlanta you have Cop City, and I've been involved in a couple of pipeline struggles, and so somebody decides we have to have something, and the benefit to society is greater than the sum of all the costs to the people that are harmed. But how do you measure what the value is? So, is it really a value to have more roads? Is it really a value to pump more oil? What about climate change? I remember trying to intervene, trying to make a complaint about some pipeline or other, and I didn't have standing because I was not immediately adjacent to the planned pipeline.
right.
And so climate change did not give me standing. Only the people who were immediately physically affected were, only those people counted. And I've known some of those people. I knew one guy who was discussing his Second Amendment rights. Um, he was a right wing person who became vigorously anti pipeline. And there were many, I know many others of those because I got involved in the KXL pipeline that they didn't build. Um, so there's a claim, cost benefit analysis. Now I could look up that. There's a legal article that I looked up, but it's not one of the things I usually do. So, um,
So we're really focusing on the right now. We've been focusing on like what's wrong and what's bad. How do we get out of this?
oh, right. And you said, how do we do ethics?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. So, how do we
So
get out of this?
the for me, the first step has been
Mm.
to recognize that I'm really part of y'all
Mm-hmm.
and not separate. But
Mm-hmm.
and you really talked about that a lot about community and getting
Mm-hmm.
together. And so I've been working on my neighborhood and just little things like inviting them to drumming for the solstice. And
Oh, cool.
so what
Yeah.
what do you think the first step is? Like here we are in
Well,
Atlanta in the middle
so,
of the city.
yeah. So, I think the first step is to notice that there's a problem. And that's like the biggest step because we're surrounded by people who say everything is fine. And only like in the past year, there have been an increasing number of people saying, no, this is not fine. But of course, there's also a large number of people saying things are not fine because those brown people and those women and those immigrants have rights. And they want it to be, they want to go back to white men in charge. And it's kind of horrifying. Donald Trump allowed them to come out into the open, and now they're just shouting. And they own a lot of the media. So, okay, let me back off here. So, first, that something is wrong, something is not working right, and we cannot solve this problem with the same kind of thinking that created it. Albert Einstein. Um, we we have to be open to new ways of thinking. And then what are those? Oh, so how to become? So sometimes I do something called an Earth Apprentice retreat. One of my things is that humans are not the only ones here. We're not the only ones that matter. We're not the only ones that have consciousness, which is not to say other beings have human consciousness, but there is consciousness. And science is showing more examples trees, soils, fungi. all of these things. I mean, dolphins were noticed quite a while ago. Um, all of these beings are beings.
When we
And
talk about sentient beings, we talk about that, then
yeah,
yeah, for me, it's like, I think rocks are sentient. What do you think?
okay, there we go. So the discussion about whether rocks are sentient beings is great fun. But so I didn't say sentient beings because you could make a case for that's only beings that like have feelings, for instance.
Well,
So
that we've
with
been able to
me,
measure.
yeah, well, that's the problem. And so I just say everything is conscious, everything is consciousness. Matter is consciousness. So to me, it goes down to atoms and molecules and drops of water in the river and grains of soil, as well as birds and stars and waterfalls and oceans and rivers and trees and so forth. So I'm like, nothing that's not conscious. And so it's like everything is sort of shining, you know? It's like there's a brilliance in it. So that is what I call the first step.
This brings you back to play.
Yeah, it does.
Everything
Yeah,
is fun. Everything is play.
yeah, right. Um,
Keep going.
yeah. So,
Well, and
yeah, go ahead.
you had said to mend it then involves being soft, flexible,
Oh, yeah.
strong, connected. That's fun.
What page are you on
Page
there?
79. My
Oh,
notes say.
good. Here I am. Oh, okay. So, so there's a teacher named Martine Prechtel who grew up on the Navajo reservation and lived for 10 years in a Mayan village in Guatemala, which is now a tourist destination, partly because of his books.
Mm.
It was
Good
already
ornate.
something of a tourist destination, but you know, people are writing it, they want all that good stuff, right? Anyway, so he was trained and became a shaman there, and so some of his writing, and he came back to the United States so he wouldn't get killed, and some of his writing is about trying to bring what he learned there to us. So he said, what a shaman does is mend the hole in the fabric of society. So this is a place we were reading. Now, previously, I had mentioned the Japanese tradition. When you break a bowl, you mend it with gold, actually with a lacquer that is partly gold. So you see gold, and so you have something that's more beautiful than it was before. If you mend it with glue, you just have a patch. But if you mend it with gold, beautiful thing. Now, I realized after writing about that we're talking about something that's fragile and brittle. So I don't like that as well as I did. So, but I was talking about becoming the gold that mends the bowl. And now I'm saying society is a fabric. It's soft, flexible, and strong. It holds together. It's composed of interwoven threads. To mend it involves being soft, flexible, strong, and connected, bringing ourselves to connection with Earth and with other humans and other conscious beings. We weave and reweave. I've done lots of mending and a little darning. You weave through the hole, you go back and forth, you connect the new threads with the old ones, interweaving them thoroughly so that the new weaving can be both as flexible and as strong as the old one. And this is something very alive. Connecting old fabrics, socks are really hard. Connecting old fabric with new fabric in such a way that the old fabric doesn't just rip out because the new one is different.
And it's more beautiful.
It's hard. I'm not sure about the socks, but I used to patch things in ways that
Yeah,
they were
yeah.
definitely more beautiful.
Well, shoes. What's the? There's a Japanese
Yeah. I've got that in here.
Sushiko that is
Yeah.
a way of mending.
Yeah.
My daughter, who's also a Zen priest, said she's got a pair of jeans. She calls her Franken jeans because she has repaired them with sashiko so many times that they don't have very much left of the original material, but they're really beautiful.
Right. I used to do jeans like that a lot.
Yeah,
And now I have less time.
right.
And so I use bigger pieces of fabric. And so they're not as beautiful.
Yeah.
But
There's a thread that I keep on coming back to, and I'm not sure we've
A
done
thread.
as good a job of pulling
Yeah.
this out as I would like to, which is this makes us happy.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
it's very easy to look at this, and people do. They get involved in trying to address the problems, and they get overwhelmed and get very stressed. But just moving into this is a way of bringing great joy and happiness into our life.
Right.
But
Yeah.
talk about that, show.
Well, yeah. I'm thinking I have been making clothes since I was 10, and I've been patching them since sometime in my adult life. And when you patch them, you make them beautiful. You make them better than they were before. That's pretty easy to do. And then there's, can we do this in a way that's socially acceptable?
Yeah.
We can.
Well, you talked about it in this
Oh,
same
really?
part. It says, "What if every time we did an act of kindness,
Oh, thank
we
you.
dedicated it to the healing of the whole fabric of the society? What if 1 billion of us did this?" So in that same way that you could repair the fabric, that kindness puts, you know, repairs society.
Yeah.
I mean, um, Dr. Nell hands out cards to people that say you matter. She has touched so many people with those cards, and people will sometimes burst into tears. That kindness of, or just smiling at someone and recognizing them that maybe wouldn't be recognized. What do
Oh,
you
yeah.
think?
So I've had to learn to be kind to myself.
Pardon me?
I've had to learn to be kind to myself.
Oh, yes, yes.
So
There is that.
so it's like there's trying to be kind to people, and
Mhm.
meanwhile you're starving inside.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure when I began to feed myself inside. But I know that right now I'm a little tired,
Mhm.
but I'm working on more nourishment. So right now, so I'm tired from traveling. So I'm sleeping a lot,
Mhm.
and I'm eating food that I like. And I'm going outdoors because when I get home, it will be cold. It's lovely. It's lovely that you still have fall colors.
Mhm.
The pleasure of driving through fall colors for 2 whole months is just amazing. I mean, you could walk through fall colors, probably not for 2 months unless you went straight south.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, but that it's fun. It's pleasant. Life is happy. Life is fundamentally happy, and this is true even when you admit all the hard things in the world. Thinking it's Derek Jensen said, he writes all these terrible things. It's almost disaster porn. Strangely like war, the global assault on forests. This was not a lot of fun book. And so he says, somebody once asked him, why don't you just kill yourself? And he said, because life is so beautiful. And then he writes this little essay about watching a dragon fly. And it's like, that man gets it, how beautiful life is. It's like, and so I'm like, oh yeah, look closely, look closely. And so my efforts to heal myself of colonizer attitudes, which are own it, pave it, destroy it, repeat, um, involves getting close to the earth. I live in a place where I can actually do this and listen and get very detailed. And so I know something. I mean, I have relationships with the creek, with the bluffs, with the river. There are 2 or 3 trees that I have special relationships with. The grasses, oh my gosh, the stars and the moon. Oh, and the way it looks out to the east at a certain time, just before sunset, it's like, oh, I can't believe how beautiful that is. Um, And so I've walked in those woods and I've asked them for things. So that's one of my things here is ask for help. And that was the reason I wrote the book. And then I almost forgot to put it in there because I had so much else to say. But it's like, ask for help. You know, that story somewhere of a boy, I don't know, he's fixing his bike or something. And he says to his dad, I've tried everything. And his dad says, no, you haven't. And the boy goes, huh? And the dad says, you haven't asked your dad for help. Okay. So I have not enough. I would like to do it more, but I have asked the stars for help and I've asked the river and I have asked whenever I travel, I go to a place. I try to find the places where I can actually feel their consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have conversations. You know, I listen, I talk, I ask questions. Oh, and the best one was in Hong Kong, and I'm opposed to long distance travel, so it's really special if I do it. And I was on this peak, and somebody took me to there were three of us. We went to a place where there was Amitabha Buddha carved into the cement on a whole rock face, and people went there regularly. So we visited it for a while, and then I went on. They went back, and when I came back, I found the dragon and the phoenix. It was like, whoa. So I asked them these things, and I asked, "Will you help me?" Because I figured they knew what I was up to. So I just asked, "Will you help me?" And they said, "You're nothing. We've got it covered."
There's something, so that's beautiful. Like, you're nothing. We've got it covered.
Yeah.
Which is real humility in there.
Yeah.
Another piece of that, I'm reminded, I'm going to butcher this, but I think this is Mother Teresa. Somebody's asking her about her prayer practice, about how she prays. And she says, well, I don't say anything. I just kind of
listen. Well, yeah.
I just kind of listen. And then, well, what does God say? He doesn't say anything either.
Right. Yeah.
And if you don't understand that, I can't help you.
Right. Yeah.
So there's something non-specific about, and it comes, I can't remember where it is, but it comes through to me in this book, about the asking for help is enough. You're not being really specific about, I want this fixed and this. It's just reaching out without any expectation. It's just an openness that moves you into connection and joy.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. It's like living this way. Oh dear. So this is a book I read a long time ago. I don't know anything, the author or anybody, but he was just this, guy in modern America. And he said he had a friend who was a shaman in, I don't know, maybe Pueblo. I don't even know where, but that's who he was in New Mexico or someplace. And lives in a trailer house. And he said, if I lost my job, I would have nothing. If he lost his job, nothing would be different. Not this guy has a job, but it's like because his tribe would take care of him. Yeah. And then he said it's not because he's a shaman. Everybody in that tribe knows that people will take care of them. And there's the thing, it's like we don't know that. We have institutions. I mean, it was interesting to see what happened when they took away SNAP benefits, because a lot of people organized to make food happen. And that's a really good thing. I mean, I think there's some positive benefits to be seen out of the chaos that's happening, but we don't know how it's going to come out yet.
Jean will host it. Should we be going to Q&A?
We should, yeah. Okay.
Does someone have questions?
Anybody want to start us off? Yeah.
Yeah, Shodo, you mentioned the play. I remember back in the 1970s and 80s, my daughter was growing up in Peachtree City, Georgia. It's one of these super well planned out communities south of Atlanta. And organized sports was taking over everything. All of the parks and recreation, all of the fields
Hmm.
had
Oh,
fences around them and with little signs that said authorized use only. Like you had to be on the football team, the
mm,
soccer team, the basketball team.
mm,
There
right.
was no open space for the kids to just run out and just play, just total free play. There was no free play. This was back in the 70s and 80s. I
Hmm.
have no idea what it's like now, but I noticed the same thing. Our next door neighbors' kids are 14 and 12, and both of them are deep into soccer, and they are just exhausted all the time. It is super organized,
Mm,
super scheduled,
mm,
and the kids just have very little opportunity for free play nowadays.
Right.
mm. Thank you. And that's, do you know the book, Last Child in the Woods? I see some nods. So it was about this absence, there's the absence of boredom, there's the absence of actual access to real woods or real wild places. Some kids in city lots, and there's an abandoned lot and it's full of trash, and that's the place where you play. And then they fix it up, and then it's not fun anymore. Um, I was lucky. I grew up, we had an acre, and then there was a lot of kind of nobody owns this land around. And so I got to be in the woods a lot. And then when I was older, I got to go down to the beach, which was, that's Huntington Reservation. And it had a lot of open wild space. And so I could just run around and hang out there. And those things created me. And I mean, I was not the most popular kid in school, but it didn't matter when I was out there with the trees or the water. Did I?
You spoke to the fact that that created you. How does, and I experienced the same thing in my own life. How do you relate that to creativity?
Oh, well, it's interesting because let me see. Did I think about creativity? What I remember doing, I remember some drawing. I remember the whole family did music. That was not a creative space until later. I mean, piano lessons, you know, improvising, that didn't show up. Um, and so what do I know? See, I think like it gestated for a while. And there came a point when it's like you're with a group of people and they're good enough musicians and they're improvising together, and I can bring my voice and I can do improv with them. I might have even done it with my flute. I don't know. And then you encounter people who know how to do it, like they lead an exercise in which everyone is making sounds, and then this just magical thing happens.
Mm-hmm.
And so I learned how to do that. So it's like fragments come as to how to do things, and then I've become able to do more things. I remember the first time I learned to do a guided meditation. I knew one visualization, and then I knew another one, and then I knew another one, and then it was like, well, how do you pick? Well, you don't pick, you invent on the spot. Once it's in you, that's
Right.
easy.
Can I offer a thought, see if there's resonance?
Thank you. Yeah.
What Ken was talking about, and you picked up on, you responded to, was
Part of it,
distinguishing
yeah.
between structured and unstructured play, really.
Oh, yes.
Right.
Right.
And so what we have now is a dearth of unstructured play for
Mhm.
children and for adults.
Right.
So my response on your part to Nell's question is, by having a lot of unstructured play in your life, you
Mhm.
were able to move into a more unstructured adulthood, and your
Right.
creativity is your whole life.
Yeah.
If you have a
Yes.
structured
Yeah.
childhood, you end up
Mhm.
in a structured life. If you have this unstructured play, you can have a creative life.
Right. And part of my childhood was very structured, and part of it was free.
Yeah.
And I remember when I had small children, I didn't want to put that structure on them. And eventually I learned that kids need some
They need
level
some,
of
yeah.
structure. And I hear from people who knew me then that there was something different in the way I treated my kids. So
But your whole life is your creative product, if you like.
Right.
in a way, yeah. Hmm.
Anybody else? Anybody else?
You mentioned feeling like zazen is play, and I
Mhm.
wanted to just hear more about that.
Oh, okay. Um, I have written some nice words here, so let me see if I can find them.
She
Oh,
said Zen is play.
zazen is play.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Page 83, 84, somewhere in
86. I mean, that whole chapter, but
Yeah.
yeah. So, so this chapter is about changing the structure of reality. Oh, no, here we go. Sitting zazen is about allowing things to be as they are. The mind produces thoughts. We normally take these thoughts as proof that we exist, as in Descartes, I think, therefore I am. We want to exist, we want to be real, and we have a mistaken idea that it's either existence or annihilation. So it's hard to back away from this evidence that I have these thoughts, therefore there is an I who has these thoughts, therefore I'm real. Thoughts just happen. So, um, oh dear, before that I said, I won't say anything about the mind being wild. If you think your mind is under control, you're probably spending a lot of energy keeping it that way and not even noticing it.
Amen.
People think that Buddhists see everything as illusion. It's an understandable mistake. The illusion is about permanence and absolute existence. We do exist in change. We are created every moment by things around us as well as by our past. We are real. To me, an apple tree is more real than a cement wall. So I'm using the word real in a biased way. The cement wall is changing, but it's a little slower. We are alive, we are life, we are change, and we are completely interconnected with everything. Now, sitting zazen is about letting that be so, giving up the fight for control and for permanence. When we lose that fight, we can be alive. That's how zazen is play.
Mm.
Um,
Later in that same one, you talk about
Yeah.
gratitude and its
Mhm.
effect on the world, on everything.
mhm.
That changes, restructures the world.
Yeah. So, yeah. So, the structure of reality is different in play. It's not brutal. It's not full of rules except, say, gravity. Um, so, changing the structure of reality, the first thing is that to a large extent we create that structure, not completely, but Zazen changes the shape of our minds. So it changes our creation.
Mm-hmm.
This is easy to understand, even if it's confusing. I'm offering that Zazen does more than that personal change. I'm imagining that when I sit quietly, maybe we say when I enter the stillness of samadhi, which is sometimes called a moment of enlightenment, when the mutual co creating of everything becomes real to me, the structure of reality looks like that mutual process.
Amen.
We are throwing our open and luminous stillness into the creation of everything. And I'm saying this has an effect on the way the world works. And this is possibly one of the most heretical things I say, but I don't think it's heretical. So,
Say it again.
oh, this has an effect on the way the world works.
the
that
world works, not just
the
you.
world works. Well, right, because the world is not separate from me. And the idea that we're separate from the world is like the big lie. It's the big illusion. And because we imagine that we're separate and because we imagine we're permanent, well, we protect ourselves, then we protect our families. And
Just makes it worse.
yeah, I mean, protecting ourselves, it's like, oh, we don't, there was there's a quote from somebody who was Inuit. So lives in the Arctic. It's, it's dark a lot. It's cold 9 months. It's never really warm.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, there's plenty. There's abundance, no problem. And, we think, you should say that in warm places. But he lived in a place that's cold. It's dark a lot.
Not much grows.
Not much grows. But of course, you're not going to be a vegetarian up there. There's seal, there's caribou, there's moose, there's fish, and seaweed and stink eggs and some other things.
I have a sentence that I think would be a good one to like end with. You
Sure.
wrote, recognize the earth as our home and all beings as our family. And I just like, so my little body just resonated with that.
Good.
Right
So-
on 87.
So there's more stuff in here about what to do, but oh well. Oh, and tomorrow morning for 3 hours, some of us are going to hang out and explore this a little more.
Yeah, you could come even if you haven't signed up to the Sangha. If you don't know where it is, you can get a hold of Gareth or me or Ken or
Several people.
yeah, a bunch of us.
Yeah.
And come on over with us and we'll sit and play together.
We'll play.
Yeah, we'll play. Yes.
Well, thank you all so much
Okay.
for this beautiful conversation. Thanks to everybody for being with us tonight. Thank you to our online friends. If y'all who are online would like to buy a copy of Open Reality, you can click the teal button at the bottom center of the screen to do that. And for all of our folks who are physically here with us, we have copies available up at the front desk with Kira, who's our bookseller tonight. So we really do appreciate when you buy event books from us. And you will just stay seated right there, Shodo, and people will come to you. We'll get the mics out of the way, and people will come to you and meet you and get their book signed. Yes, so thank you all. Thank you, Charlie, for making this happen. And I hope you all have a safe travel time if anybody is traveling this weekend. And be well. Thanks so much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.